Every Sunday before dawn, when the rest of the town still slept under blue shadows and quiet frost, Mrs. Ellen Hart turned on the lamp in her small farmhouse kitchen and tied a faded apron around her waist. Her hands, wrinkled by years and work, reached automatically for the flour jar, the old wooden bowl, and the handwritten recipe her husband had tucked into a Bible long before he died. She had been a widow for 17 years. Some mornings, the silence of the house felt so deep she could hear the ticking clock and her own breathing. On the wall beside the stove hung a wedding photograph, yellowed at the edges, where she and her husband stood young and smiling in front of the little church at the end of County Road 6. She would glance at that picture while kneading the dough, and sometimes tears would slip down her face and disappear into the flour. But Ellen had learned something in her grief. Love does not end when sorrow begins. It changes its shape. So she baked. The bread rose beside the sunlit window while the morning radio hummed an old hymn. Her kitchen filled with the scent of yeast and warm crust, and when the loaves were ready, she wrapped them in clean towels and carried them out to her old truck. She delivered bread to the widow on Maple Street, to the farmer recovering from surgery, to the single mother with 2 children and tired eyes, and to the elderly man who had not spoken much since his wife passed away. She never arrived with a sermon on her lips, only kindness in her hands. One icy Sunday, she stopped at the home of a young mother named Hannah, who had been sitting at her table with unpaid bills and a baby crying in her arms. Ellen placed a warm loaf beside her and a small note that read, "God sees you." Hannah broke down and wept. "I don't know how to keep going," she whispered. Ellen sat down across from her and said softly, "You keep going one morning at a time. The Lord does not ask us to be strong all at once. He asks us to be faithful." That question, in that bread, became part of the town's weekly life. People began bringing soup to one another, helping with repairs, watching children during hard days, and sitting a little longer in church after the final hymn. What had begun in one quiet kitchen spread through the whole community like leaven in dough. Years later, when Ellen's hands had grown too weak to knead as long as they once had, the town planned something in secret. On a bright Sunday morning, after worship, the pastor asked her to remain in the sanctuary. One by one, families from across the town entered, carrying baskets, trays, and warm loaves of bread. Long wooden tables were set beneath the windows, and candles were lit. Children laughed, neighbors embraced, and even those who had once come only to receive now came to serve. At the center of it all sat Ellen, her eyes shining with tears as she looked at the room filled with faces she had loved through bread, prayer, and steady mercy. The pastor said, "For years you fed us with bread,